I was listening to today and taking notes on. How do I put this down? Lee, thanks for the populars. Jamie, thank you for the rose. Okay, let me put the keyboard down. So, let me just go over some of the stuff that we were talking about because AJ reminded me, so we might as well look at it. Let me know if this subject speaks to any of you guys or not, because obviously some things that like make sense in my brain and relate to me don't always relate to everybody else. So, that's so funny, Josh, because I'm just trying to spam your content. All right. So this podcast I was listening to today, it's the podcast of the Diary of a CEO. And so the lady that was talking, she used to be in like Secret Service and worked for like presidents and a bunch of different things. And this is a lot of like what she learned through her job. I'm only 30 minutes in. It's a 2.5 hour long podcast. So I'm also going to listen to it more and kind of see, maybe she hasn't gotten to the confident aspect of it yet. And I really want to hear what she has to say about actual confidence. That's so funny, Jamie. Thanks, Josh. Kinder Joy. Are those like the candy? You know what, Reed? Whenever you need a little boost, let us know. I feel like we're pretty bubbly and happy in here, and we do confidence lessons twice a week, where I teach the inner strength building techniques to improve your confidence skills. And there's a few people in here that I think can attest to like how quite literally like life transforming it can be when you apply a lot of these lessons. So this is the notes I was taking. So the point to this one is we tend to look at moments in our life and say like, this is why we are the way we are. We say a lot of the time, oh, it's not our fault because this happened here at this point in our life. But what doing that does is it actually renders us powerless. We always say we're this way because of this other stuff, and that literally tells our brains that we're powerless over it, and that actually suppresses our inner selves. So a lot of the time we use past diagnoses for current self-justification. An example is like, my dad was organized and messy, so I'm messy. And they were saying like it kind of like etches it into that cement when we start claiming that for ourselves. It's the fact that like a long-term enemy, because it's a long-term enemy for us because it tells yourself that you're stuck the way that you are, when in fact we actually can really have self-improvement in any area of our lives. They also talked a lot about psychoanalyzing things, which for my overthinkers in here, this was the stuff. So a lot of the time, we overthink and we go, well, why does this person treat me this way? Like, why does this and that happen? And why don't these people like me? And how come someone was rude to me today, or different things like that? And we start overthinking, we psychoanalyze, and we go super, like, we flood our minds with it, right? That's how overthinking works, is we kind of start like spiraling into these different thoughts. And I think something that I haven't talked about here before is that like overanalyzation of things. And they were saying there's like, sometimes there's a reason, and sometimes there's literally just not, and someone's just specifically, like, they're just not a good person. That's a very unhappy, unfortunate person. So we kind of have to realize that sometimes there's not going to be an explanation that we can find. So we go, okay, that's fine, and then we move on. They were talking about this, and I really liked it. They were saying that your cognitive function is like a bathtub. It can only hold so much water. So they're like, if you keep adding water, the bathtub's going to overflow. And our brains are exactly like that. We add more stuff, and it actually ends up making us sloppy, inefficient, or it adds a lot of stress to our lives because we're literally just maxed out. So we only need to hold the water that we can hold, right? It leads to bad decisions, which if you've heard of decision fatigue, that basically, like, you make so many decisions that you start making more poor ones, and you just don't have the energy to pour into everything. So busy does not equal better or producing better. I think a lot of the time that we think that, oh, if I keep, like, I'm busy, I'm doing all this stuff, but that doesn't mean that we're producing anything worth quality. It doesn't mean that we're actually doing better. It can actually create a lot of negative downfalls for ourselves. So they were saying, like, a leader doesn't keep adding. What a leader actually does is they take out of that bathtub and they disperse. They take it out, they take it out, they take it out, they take it out. They actually figure out how to always lighten that load. So they go, they're like, well, what can I take out so that I can be exceptional at these things? Instead of having all of these things that we kind of do, we're not necessarily, getting them all the way 100% there. What can we take out of our bathtub so that we can do certain things exceptionally well? Because now you have the time to pour into that, where you have the energy. So the example they gave actually was Barack Obama actually had 30 of the exact same suit. And they were like, well, why is that? Because it was less decisions to make. He didn't have to take the time to think. Like, think about how many decisions a president has to make a day. So many decisions. So if he could minimize an area where he has to make a decision and think about what he's going to wear, that allows his bathtub to be full of different things. Such a simple example, but that's literally what it is. Simple things like that we overanalyze, that we overthink, that start taking up space in this bathtub for us, that create stress in our lives that we don't necessarily even need. Right? So he bought 30 of the same suits to take away that decision. Now, I'm not saying that, but that's isn't that crazy? So Jeremy, thank you so much and welcome in. Overthinking and overanalyzing literally does not allow you to perform. It also, so when you start taking things out of your bathtub and you have more time, it actually you get more emotional availability. I mean, I'm talking about a confidence lesson that I was reading through this podcast and took notes on that I wanted for you guys. But it actually creates more space for our emotional stability. So we literally become way more emotionally stable when we're actually doing less. Isn't that crazy? Sometimes I feel like, oh, I need to be doing all these things to better myself. No, my bathtub's overflowing. So if we start, because I'm going to dive deeper into it tomorrow, but this is just what I was learning today. So yeah, my bathtub's overflowing. Therefore, my emotions are overflowing. All of that, it all creates and builds this stress. Versus if we can take things out of that we don't really need, or things that we don't need to worry about or focus on at that time, we can be way more exceptional human beings. We can be more exceptional at the thing. Like when I was overstressing myself, I had live stream and pageant and being a wife and cleaning and doing this and this and this and this. And my day was so stressful and so full that I wasn't doing as great at live stream because I wasn't putting my full happy energy into it. I wasn't as great at cleaning the house because, if anything, I was just like going through it as fast as I could. I wasn't great at practicing because I was skimming over just what I could. I started taking things out and I was like, okay. That's actually what that 1 week we took off was so great for me for, is because I was able to recenter and realize I don't need to do everything. Exactly. It gives me, now I can be exceptional at my pageant training. Now I can be exceptional on here for you guys and bring my happy joy every single night to you guys that I really do have with being on here. So then there's also this other aspect that they started talking about, which is a negative focus mindset. Exactly, AJ, exactly. So a negative focus mindset. Thanks, AJ. No, I'll post the link to this in there, because there's a lot of information that obviously I don't take things for. But this negative focus mindset is something different that I haven't really paid attention to as much. And I think maybe even if we see this ourselves as like, oh, maybe this is something we do, or maybe we know someone that does this, it kind of can give you a good perspective on how to handle that, I believe. Jamie. So a negative focus mindset, they were saying we can't help everyone. Because again, like our bathtub is full, right? We don't always have the energy to pour into other people. And they said, they're like, this is a terrible thing to say, but not everyone is worth saving. Like you need to be really selective with that. And I was like, interesting. Because I think a lot of the time we almost pour more energy into people that maybe don't have the right open mindset for the energy we are pouring and giving into them. So they were saying, when you meet a person and everything is bad, or a problem, that person, they don't want a solution. They want you to actually validate how they feel. And they were saying like, oh, like, well, are they the problem? And they were like, well, absolutely. If you go to a store and you get into a fight every single time, it's not the store's problem, you know, it's their own. There tends to be, you know, a factor in that when they find a problem with everything. Hi, Breezy, welcome in. So they said often people do want an audience, or they want to hear the, oh, I'm so sorry. They want to hear that, I'm so sorry that happened. And it can actually be really addictive. And the thing is this happens to good people. This isn't a bad person. This happens to good people. It can be a very addictive thing to hear, getting that validation and things like that. So they said sometimes people have an experience such as a loss in their family or different things like that, and they get bombarded with all of this attention, right? And this is how simple it can start. People get addicted to that bombarding of attention, but eventually people go back to their own lives, and then there's none of that still coming through. So they look for the next problem to receive that. They just turn to then they have to have something else to get people to start bringing that back. They look for something else to start bringing that back into their lives. Maybe we're guilty of this sometimes. Maybe someone we know that has been maybe energy draining for us is. Absolutely, Breezy. Congrats on making it through your surgery, and we love you so much. We'll be praying for you. So they were saying it's a cycle. It happens to good people, but also we don't need to spend our energy giving unsolicited advice, because our bathtub's so full that we don't have the energy to put into that, right? And some people will build such an identity that depends on that. And then they allow that, they always have to have an enemy, right? With those negative mindsets. And so it transfers to family, it transfers to friends, it'll transfer to you, it'll transfer to whatever, all of their relationships that they have. And suddenly they have to have a problem with everything. And that can be so energy draining for you guys. If you're looking for a problem, you always find a problem, right? We get what we look for. And that's also something I really say with social media online. Like, well, kind of, Breezy, I'm kind of going over like what I learned off of this, what I've been listening to a lot of podcasts lately, and so I was taking notes during this, and I kind of want to dive deeper into it tomorrow on our Confidence Tuesday, but just a little bit. Sorry, what were they saying? Oh, yeah. So, like, if you're looking, when I'm a big advocate for social media, I'm like, hey, though, a lot of people have negatives to say about social media, right? But I'm like, but you're probably looking for negatives. Are you opening the comments and looking to see all the negative comments somebody leaves on a post? Or are you following positive people that bring good energy into this world? Your feed is what you make it. What you click on is exactly what it brings up. So, yeah, no, we do Confidence Tuesdays and Inner Strength Fridays at 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time twice a week. I also have a YouTube channel that I repost some of the lessons to as well. Just so that when you guys need them, they're available for viewing. So it said, sometimes we can't help people like that because they either don't want it, or pointing those things out can actually anger people, because it's very self-focused with that situation. They were saying it literally, even negativity can create an adrenaline rush for people as well. The same as it can for anything else. Anything that feels good, you get that dopamine hit and you feel like you almost need more of it. Some people literally get that off of negativity. And those people like that are people that maybe we need to realize sometimes, no, you do not. Me? Really? Oh my gosh, congratulations. Wait, with who? And then continuing on this, they were saying also there's secondary gain as well from this same stuff that we're talking about. There's a secondary gain that can come from pain or different things like that. Oh gosh dang it, Amit. You pulled my leg. It can give people safety or comfort. It can give people identities, things like that. But a lot of the time, sometimes two people can have a similar situation in this aspect, and they create identities by actually enabling each other. So the example they gave was there was like a son who was sick, and the mom kind of enabled him by taking care of him so much, but it also created an identity for her because they both all the time were getting that, oh, I'm so sorry, like that must be so hard for you. Like they were both getting that attention and validation from that. And then when she finally decided, the mom decided to remove herself from that situation, the kid got better really fast. So there's also other things like that can enable each other through that. They were talking about adaptability and how it is accepting the truth. The example they were giving was an iceberg. They said sometimes as well, we'll go into conversations with people, right? And we don't always accept other people's values or beliefs. And I think this is a really important thing on here because I know many people have struggled with this even on TikTok, where there are other opinions from some creators on here aren't accepted, their beliefs, their values, things like that, because people, what we oftentimes believe when we have such strong beliefs ourselves is we think we can change someone's opinion in a few hours, few minutes of like talking and sharing because it's impacted us so much. But what we don't think about is when you see someone, it's just the tip of the iceberg, right? And they have years of this iceberg below the water. That's their life, their experience, their families, their friends, their beliefs, all of those different things that have been built up over years and years. And a lot of the time people forget that. And she was giving the example when she had to go in and interview like terrorists or different things like that. She's like, I'm not going to go into that room and be like, well, I'm a good person, like, I'm not the bad guy, like I need you to tell me this stuff. And she's like, no, I went in accepting the person that I had, knowing that they already had this foundation of a person. I'm not going to change someone's belief system that they grew up with their entire life based off of that, like based off of me saying I'm a good person and like trying to change their view. And I thought that was a really interesting way to explain it, because I mean that's what she literally had to do. But she's like, I went into it knowing that. And I think sometimes when we think we can change people, their core fundamentals, we have to learn acceptance, that that's that person that we're meeting right then and there, and that's who they are, and we either need to accept and learn to adapt and see if we can have them in our lives or not. So that was a really interesting thing as well with the iceberg thing, because again, I think a lot of people on here struggle being accepted for different beliefs or things like that, especially honestly even within recapture. You have so many creators that believe a certain thing that they think they can change a lot of people within a few minutes, but they don't realize everything that people have under that iceberg that they also believe or feel. Yeah, absolutely, Kev. Absolutely. And you've grown a lot, Kev. I'm really proud of you as well. Then they were talking about real confidence, which this was just the guy, not the specialist, that was talking. That's what I'm about to get to, and I really want to dive more into that. But she was talking about real confidence. And he said, real confidence is when the story in your head, right? We've talked about this a lot, about when the story in your head about yourself is that you are of high value. You have to have that. And he said, that's what makes all the difference. Because he's like, when I was younger, I thought I had real confidence, but in reality, he didn't. And real confidence is that story in your head, seeing yourself as of high value. He actually used a lot of dating scenarios. People who think that they have a time limit on their dating tend to almost honestly scare people off more, which was very interesting to hear. So for anybody who's looking to date, this is a great part to listen to, because he was talking about how he has this buddy where the girl went, she was like, oh, well, I don't really know if I want to have kids. And he was like, well, I want to have kids. I want to have this many, and she broke up with him. And instead, what he did, because he had the idea that he was of high value in his head, when he had his girlfriend ask him that and was like, I don't even know if I want to have kids. Well, he was like, well, I don't even know. He didn't say this out loud, but this was the perception he had. Well, you're still in a trial phase. I'm not sure if I even want to have kids with you yet. I'm still testing that out, seeing if you fit into my life or different things like that. And that's the woman he ended up marrying and being with, because he had more of this. And he's like, it's not even the fact that you're testing people. He's like, that sounds like a really bad way to put it. But we subconsciously, without realizing it, due to past traumas or things like that, we do test people to see if they're different than the things we aren't looking for, if they fit into our lives, things like that. And when you believe you're of high value, you look for those things that actually do make you happy and that fit into your life, and that actually takes stress off of the result of an outcome. Because you're of high value, you can find someone else. You know, that having that mentality can create a lot of change in your relationship, actually. And he said that his buddy was actually struggling a lot with the thought of, because he's almost 40, I think he said. So he's like on this time limit, and he's almost like trying to rush women down the aisle. And that's exactly why that guy remained single compared to the one who actually got married. Because of that. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? Having that mindset, that mindset shift made that big of a difference in someone's life. Allowed them to find their happiness with someone else. Kind of crazy. But what they were also saying is sometimes we think, oh, I'm texting back. The reason someone isn't with me, oh, is it because I'm texting back too fast, or I'm too much, or am I too forward with them? Different things like that. But sometimes our immediate response is actually showing our insecurities without realizing it, instead of seeing our value. And people that know you value yourself see the value in you as well. So that's as far as I got. But that's actually a crazy thing. So that's actually a really strong thing, is like we actually show our insecurity when we are overthinking in those areas instead of seeing our own value. And when we see our value, other people do as well. So that's as far as I got in it. I don't know if that... Yeah, isn't that crazy, AJ? Isn't that crazy? Stop being smart. Jamie, this is just what I'm learning, but you know what? Oh my gosh, thank you so much for the heart me. Thanks, Joe. I'm so glad. I mean, I'm still going to listen to more of this. There's a lot more from this podcast, but this is just notes I was taking while I was listening to it. I didn't know. Honestly, this is just notes that I took as they were talking. So this wasn't like, I mean, I was kind of adding some of my own thoughts into this, but. Oh, Reed, well, thank you so much. This is what I like to do. I'm very passionate about teaching confidence and helping people and helping create mindsets. I've started spending a lot of time on these podcasts, honestly trying to educate myself in a lot of different ways on this, because I think it just creates so much personal development that we all could use. So yeah, I'm going to drop the link to this in the Discord. Again, I'm literally only 30 minutes in, and that's how much information they went over. And it's a 2.5 hour long podcast. So I've got a ways to go, but The Diary of a CEO. Yes. What was this one called? Because The Diary of a CEO is the creator's thing. That's like their channel name. Yeah, that's what it's called, channel name. But let me look up what exact video was. I'll drop it in the Discord right now. Oh shoot, why the heck is this not working? I thought that's just, is it